morning, members and everyone. Welcome to the Lochaber Area Committee meeting for August 2023. Do we have any apologies for absence?
There's none, Chair. Everyone's present.
Thank you. Does anyone have any declarations of interest?
No.
Thank you. No declarations of interest. And note that recess powers were granted for the June, were not exercised. So moving on to item 4, it is the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service Local Committee Performance Report, and we have Mike Collier on the line. Good morning, Mike, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Chair. I hope you're all well, and thank you for having me here today.
Yes, thank you very much. Hope you are too.
Indeed, thank you. So, in this instance, because I didn't think I was actually going to make your meeting today, I did annotate the report. So I'll cover some of the points in there if that's okay. And then there can be any questions if anybody wants to ask at the end. Is that okay, Chair?
Yes, thank you very much. That would be great.
Okay, perfect. So, starting with our accidental dwelling fires, we had 2 within the Lochaber area over that period. There were no significant issues for personnel to manage, and the community safety team, led from our Fort William station, will arrange to provide guidance on home fire safety where appropriate and necessary at that time. We continue to have no fatalities for accidental dwelling fires, and we're the 5-year trend very low for non-fatal accidental dwelling fires. So these are exceptionally good figures for the area, and demonstrates that our home fire safety engagement and our community members are looking after themselves in their homes, which is very good to hear. So then we're moving on to all deliberate fires. A number of these fires are obviously grass and woodland related. One of the comments I've put in there is obviously they were dealt with successfully, but due to the unusually extended hot period of weather this year, and as we all know, we all benefited it from some degree, but unfortunately in Cannock and Davitt and places like that, that was a considerably more difficult situation for us. So I showed an increase in the first quarter of this year, and we had one down in the sort of Acharical down towards Strontian area that went on for a period of time, and that was dealt with again by the crews very, very capably. Some of these we need to actually work with our partners though, and have conversations with some of our Police Scotland colleagues to investigate some of the fires that were started. Those are things that we will work with as partner agencies, and as we have outcomes from those, I will update you on a sort of personal basis in regards to that going forward. We need to ensure that 1 or 2 of these incidents that were started, whilst I'm not, they are deliberate, they have been considered to be deliberate, and we need to ensure that this is something that doesn't happen in future. So there'll be a bit of engagement there, and working with landowners to ensure that. We do actually have some programmes running over the next little while, both in Lochaber and Ardmurchan, and up in Kyle and Wester Ross, with some of the landowners, crofters, the deer management, etc., and how they manage their land going forward, and how we do deal with that as organisations to try and reduce the number of fires we had. As you know, it's culturally, it's one of these things that gets done, but if we can manage them more successfully, that will be the starter for 10 for me. We'll always have these fires, but we don't want unchecked or wildfire, unnecessary wildfire spread. Okay, special service RTCs, very few in the area, thankfully. Again, all just making scenes safe and medical assistance only. We have had, to be honest, quite a few good quarters over the past few months, and I'm pleased to see that. There seems to be an improvement. There is actually, speaking to one of my colleagues in Inverness area, because the A9 is getting a lot of attention, there's a little bit of a campaign from our fire safety team over there to look at how we speak to those that hire camper vans, tourists coming in, because we all know that a lot of our more serious RTCs tend to be around frustrations within the roads and infrastructure. The tends to be that if a camper van comes off the road, it's at low speed. So there's going to be a conversation over this side around how to actually use our roads properly. Pulling over, letting traffic past, consider queues behind you, consider that coming out on the left, those sort of small things. So we've got some ideas around that. I spoke with what we call the local area liaison officer on Monday. And we've got some ideas of how we're going to move that forward. So we'll have two very different campaigns in the west and in the east, because the A9 is obviously a lot of that's down to speed. So we'll look at that. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful and gives you some reassurance. We're always taking cognizance of what's going on. UFAS, potentially something you may want to discuss. The new policy has been implemented as of the 1st of July, where we will not attend all fire alarms on what we would call an activation, a fire alarm activation within a premise. We will continue to do that for all sleeping risks. We will continue to do that where there are further activations or a phone call or a sprinkler or a heat detector. So at all times, all life risk will be considered and a response will be sent. I've put a link in there to allow you to go to that if you want to have a look, because some of our members in other areas have had some concerns around that. What I would say is that, as I've said before, the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service has never failed to attend an incident where we're required to be there. But however, we have seen a significant drop in our mobilisations, which allows us then to be considering other aspects of activity that we may be able to undertake in the future, but that's discussions between our senior management team and the Scottish Government at that point. Moving on, we'll look at station availability. We can... Sorry, yes, please.
Questions going through, or do you want us to wait to the end?
I think wait till the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, we do wait to the end. My apologies for that. So that's fine. Generally speaking, we wait to the end. So station availability. It maintains pretty static within the area. There's definitely improvement being seen at Kinlochleven. We've seen a number of applicants there and successful in the process. Fort William continues to have really good availability. What I've also done is I've told Fort William that they can actually increase the number of people they have there to increase the availability overall. Lochaber's got another applicant. Acarico, I think, has got another applicant. Kilhoan has up to 5, which is really good for that area. Mallaig is the one that I'm really not getting a lot of interest from, and I have some concerns around that with some of the ages of our personnel that are there. And Strontian continues to tick along quite nicely. Muck's in there, but we don't tend to use Muck now. It's more what we would call a community resource, and we support them through community safety on the island rather than operational response. And at that point, that's me covered most of that. As I say, my apologies. I normally give you a report, but I didn't expect to be here, so I'm more than happy to take any questions now. Should you wish to do so, and I'll do my best to answer or get back to you.
Thanks, Mike. Angus, I think you might have a question.
I have got 3, and they're somewhat interlinked. Mike, there is a worry that if there's a big drop in call-out because of the change of policy by the fire service, is that certain very small stations, for example, Kilhoan, will not get enough call-outs, and you guys will look at the data and you will say, well, we actually don't need a fire engine in that site. So that's point 1. And the second one is Highland Council voted against your idea of, or not your idea, but the fire service idea of not attending calls where there was a verification of an actual fire. And one of the reasons they did that is because if there was a fire say in a chip shop and there was a residence upstairs, or an alarm from a chip shop where there was a residence upstairs, you guys might not go to that if it broke out at 11 o'clock in the evening. And that really was a risk to life, and there was no way of identifying that. And the third one is, I've been in touch, in fact, even this morning, who I'm impressed to say Mike Humphreys, who worked for you, was in touch with me at 6:28 this morning, so hats off to him, to say, I wrote to him saying the equipment at Spearn Bridge was very old and not up to the job, and could he look at that? And he sent an email saying, basically, you were always looking at your kit, and it was. But I wonder how often your kit is updated, because Spearn Bridge, the people in your crew there tell me it is badly needed replacing. So those are my 3 points.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So I'll take them one at a time if that's okay. And I'll get to the last one because that'll be a little bit more involved to discuss that. So in respect of the call for UFAS, you are right. We have seen a significant drop in the number of calls that our stations are attending. Stations like Kilhone, for example, didn't particularly attend very many. On the West Coast, we have probably less than 100 UFAS calls a year amongst our stations. Fort William is the busiest because of the large urban area. Therefore, the application of, if it's a reduced number of calls for a station for UFAS basis, is probably negligible in this instance for the likes of Kilhone and a remote rural. What we are looking at, and that will be conversations that are being held with Scottish Government, is that model, and this is obviously supposition at the moment and a hypothesis, is that medical response to support the Scottish Ambulance Service and our community members. So that out of hospital cardiac arrest events, slips, trips and falls. That has to be negotiated with our union, our senior management team and Scottish Government, how that has progressed. The only impact we will ever have on our stations is where we have what we call and you will have seen in the press, some of the appliance withdrawals through the whole time. So we have what's called a service delivery model programme. We have a £36 million saving to achieve over 4 years. That has been certainly scrutinised heavily on our whole time at this moment in time, and that will be for the next couple of years, maybe 3 years. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the on-call will not be reviewed at some point in the future. The difficulty with removing an on-call station is a geographical challenges in responding to an incident should it be required. Because remember, at the end of the day, we're there for the what-if scenario. We're not there because there's going to be a fire. We're there because there may be an incident that we need to attend. So there's a lot of conversations have to be had around that. If I was to go back and say in the former Highlands, and many years ago, I believe a significant numbers of years ago, there was only 28 stations in the whole of the Highlands, and that has increased to 56. And obviously, things have changed. We have a lot of areas which have had a lot of increase in development. The caveat to that is that whilst there's been a lot of residential development, a number of them are second homes, and they remain unoccupied for a period of time as well. So there's a lot of data is analysed over a large period of time, between 5 and 10 years, and that works towards what we do. So I don't want anybody jumping to any assumption that a station is going to close because they're not going to UFAS. That will not be the case at this moment in time. Absolutely 100%. We are always analysing our service. That is absolutely the number one priority at the moment from our assistant chief, our chief and our deputy, who are going through that, saying how can we make a leaner, more modern, more efficient fire service for the future use. So that's conversations to be had, but I can rest assure you that Kilhone is not in that conversation at this moment in time by any means of imagination, and not for some years that I'm aware of. As I'm just a minion, the same as everybody else. I will probably find that out in due course if something does come up, but please be assured that those conversations will be had with you at the very, very early outsets if we were looking at things like that. I hope that gives you some reassurance that, you know, our remote rural stations are under no threat at this moment in time. Is that okay, sir?
Yep.
Okay, so the Highland Council voted against not attending, and a number of local authorities did. The problem that we have is under the Fire Scotland Act, it does quite clearly state under the responsibilities of a duty holder that they are responsible for managing their fire safety within their premise. They have a responsibility for managing the alarms, managing the attendance, managing the evacuation, and so on and so forth. That's very clear in the 2005 Act. What we had found was that that maybe wasn't as clear as it was, and we were attending an awful lot of incidents with road risk, etc., where there was a risk to the member of public. There was nothing to be done when we got there, and on some instances we were not able to attend incidents that we actually needed to attend. Now, your example that you give is very good, actually, and for consideration. So if there is a fire in the chip shop and the alarm goes off, it won't be connected to an alarm receiving centre like a care home, for example. So the chances are that, yes, there will be a fire within that premise that might actually start to develop. The consideration around that would be that what they've taken into account, and you're absolutely right, I was never part of that conversation, but what they've taken into account is further calls, follow-up calls, members of the public coming in and saying we can smell fire, there's fire within a building, and so on and so forth, and then that attending response would happen. I have to assume that there's been a lot of data looked at, and particularly in the cities and the urban and built-up areas where there's accommodation above premises. And again, it comes back to what I talk about with that Fire Scotland Act and the requirement to ensure that there's an hour separation between premises, so that what should happen is the floor should hold fire for up to an hour between fire below and the access to the people above. Those are the kind of things that there should be 30-minute fire doors in, 60-minute fire doors on corridors, and I'm sort of dragging out in the mist now with some of the work I used to do. But all those things should be in place to ensure that people can get out. So you would expect that because of the smell of smoke, the signs and symptoms of fire, that most of these things would be quite quickly identified, which would allow people to egress. However, we may have to carry out rescues. I cannot sit here in good conscience and tell you that every single time will be a very straightforward situation. None of the incidents we go to are generally like that. But they have considered, and I have to assume that they've considered all aspects of that before they made this decision, because it was a good couple of years in the thought process prior to it being implemented. I think it has shown, and as I said to you, the West Coast, we have very, very few UFAS calls, and it's probably going to more affect our cities, our urban and our large urban areas. So at this moment, that is a bit of a politician response. But what we've also said that is, if we start to get areas where we see, and we as managers and that have been asked to look at that, if we find somewhere where we think there's an enhanced risk, then we can put a business case in to say, no, we want to move that back to a response model that requires an attendance to an EFA if that's required. I hope that's satisfactory to some degree. And I'm more than happy to have these conversations going forward and bring some of our colleagues in that are more involved in that directorate if you wish us to do so.
I think my response is it's fine until it's not. Interestingly, a company got in touch with me after the Highland Council thing, and he said there is technologies now where they measure the smoke and they measure the heat, and when a number of things come together, then a call can be made to the the fire service as a result of that. And I said, this is above my pay grade. You have to speak to the Highland Council about this. But it's clearly raising a few questions. Anyway, I think that's enough for this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, sir. And so the last thing there, Mike Humphries is my area commander. He's my boss. I'm glad to hear he's up at 6:28 in the morning. We're both on call at the moment anyway. So Speenbridge. Scott Andrews is the watch commander there. I know Scott very well, and he's absolutely spot on. That appliance that they have is, I don't want to use the term not fit for purpose, because it is fit for purpose. However, it is antiquated and needs changed. Now, I'm what we call the operations single point of contact for the Highlands, and I work quite closely with our partners in the Central Belt, our asset management team, property, etc., again, around how we are managing our equipment and our assets going forward. The CRU stations, the community response stations, of which we have 6 in the Highlands, have all been analysed to say what do they require going forward, because they're a little bit of an anomaly in the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. They attend road traffic collisions and wildfire only. So the organisation has looked at the appliance type that they may require, and what they're doing is we now have a range of appliance models that will be procured, and we will look to put in an appliance that is more suitable for today's fire service. I'm getting a little bit of feedback there. I don't know if somebody's going a mic. I'm getting a little bit of that side going now. So the equipment that's there is always reviewed, and we also are always looking to update when and where we can. We have 356 stations across Scotland. We have a property portfolio that's losing money hand over fist, and we need to ensure that we can try and do the best we can for every station. None of them are being ignored. I've just had conversations this morning about Portree, Uig, Glenelg, Ullapool, a number of stations that we need to say there's things we need to do there. Speenbridge is on that list as well. And I know, for example, if you look at Strontian is getting a brand new appliance. Hopefully you're all aware of that. And that'll be coming in the next month or so, if it's not already en route. And that's giving them a brand new appliance with brand new equipment. It comes fully kitted. That'll go into Speenbridge as well at that point. But we need to establish what we actually need from the community response units as well, because they were designed only to respond to road traffic collisions and wildfires. So there's quite a few conversations to be had about that, and the two unions that are involved, the FBU and the FSRA, they are part of that conversation going forward. So please assure Scott, if you have no conversations with him, and I'm more than happy to sit down with him as I've done in the past, that he is not lost in this agenda and this momentum of where we try to move our organisation forward and make it fit for purpose.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
Does anyone else? Sarah, question?
Thank you very much, Mike, for this presentation. Just a comment first, and then a very simple question about something completely different. The first one is about reducing road traffic collisions. You're talking about camper vans and using lay-bys. I think we need to think of who we target for that. And yesterday I was on my way to Inverness, and there was a queue of camper vans, and there is that lay-by where you can actually pull out. It says frustration causes accidents. I forgot the exact wording. I think the wording was something like pull out into the lay-by to ease out traffic ahead, or something like that. Being a non-native speaker, I thought 33 years ago when I arrived in Scotland, I would not have understood that message. I mean, I'm fine now. Now, the problem is that the people actually driving on that road, they've been in Scotland for maybe 2 or 3 days, and their English is perhaps good. But this is not the sort of sign they will understand. Some of them don't even speak English, probably. So how can we find ways of making sure, like visuals, or if we use English, we use simple international words, stop, here, slow vehicles, that sort of thing. So just food for thought. The other question is about wildfires. Has there been any work or engagement with rangers?
Okay, thank you very much for that. I'll take your first one if that's okay. So you're absolutely right. That was James and I discussed that about language barriers. Highland Council, members of that they obviously have their budget deficiencies as well, and how they move that going forward is one of the challenges, because that's obviously a cost implication in regards to that. We have talked about, we have cards within our appliances where we have multiple languages so that we can talk through incidents with people who have obviously not from this country, who don't speak the language. So therefore we have taken cognizance of that. Part of the conversation I had with James is, do we one of the things we looked at in Skye back in 2019, because we had an awful lot of accidents where people came out of roads and drove onto the right hand side of the road, because that was just what they came out of a car park and they went onto the other side, and therefore we had some impacts, and that was very common. So one of the things that we did was we talked to the rental firms, and we spoke about putting stickers on steering wheels, keep left, in languages that were more prevalent for people coming, from we get a lot of Dutch, a lot of French, a lot of Chinese over here. So therefore we could target these languages. So part of that was conversation with James was, can we have some leaflets that we can put inside these rental firms that are then put into the camper vans, and therefore, because one of the ones we identified yesterday was coming into Inverness Airport, there is a camper and van hire place just outside Inverness Airport, and I noticed a lot of the registrations are Sierra Yankee, and I'm thinking, are they picking them up there? So James is away and going to target that and say, right, can we put these leaflets in here, make sure they read them and they understand them, and they're there from the minute they arrive in the car, in the vehicle, and they're able to take some sort of acknowledgement of it, and it just has that bit of recognition? Or is it something we have to say we need it stuck on the inside of the car somewhere in the dash just to remind them? And, you know, it's not just a problem for ourselves. This is a problem across the whole of the UK. So it's something that we'll do as a sort of a localised and then maybe a Scottish and national thing as we go forward. So I hope that gives you some reassurance that we did take a real good look at that and think about that as well. The wildfires, Rangers, it's a good call. I haven't had anybody discuss that with me. We did speak to the one up at Kyle, but however, I will certainly look into that and appreciate that one. Okay.
Thanks, Mike. Thomas has just put his hand up.
Okay, thanks, Mike, for your report. Just touching on that lay-by issue, about signage, etc., and we do. But a number of years ago, a roads engineer was pointed out to me about the A82. If when you drive down the A82, and if I talk about like the loch sides, like Loch Ness, Loch Linney, you're basically driving down a green tunnel now. It's like Jurassic Park you're driving through, and you can't see the scenery. And what he was saying to me quite a few years ago was, if every second lay-by, like where it says parking 1/4 of a mile, if they would just cut the foliage, the trees, it would educate drivers that there's a lay-by coming up. And if you did it to every second one, the one in between, the lay-by in between, you just leave it in Jurassic Park, and that's where your HGVs pull in because there's no view. And without any language barriers or signage, you would educate drivers that as soon as the view opened up, there's a lay-by coming. I highlighted this a number of years ago, and the big lay-by that's towards the end of Loch Linney, down at 3 Mile Water, that's a forestry sort of stop, but you can drive right off the road. It had become totally overgrown, and they cut it all back, and from about 1/4 of a mile away you could see, oh, there's a place to park there. I've just started to notice it's now becoming totally grown over again, and you're not seeing it till you're right on it. And I think if we did something like that, the length of the A82, because it's the same problem exists on Loch Ness as well, you would subliminally almost educate people that there's a lay-by coming, and they would anticipate it and slow down and pull into it. And as I say, if you left every second one locked up, that's where the HGVs could pull off and reduce the amount of frustration of being held up by cars. It's a different way of approaching it, but I think it's a way that would work if we actually did it. And the other thing I wanted to say was about Lochaber and the low number of staff. I remember this problem existed a number of years ago, and one of the ways we solved it was increasing the amount of female firefighters, because the problem in that particular area, I think, was during the day a lot of the males left the area to work during like 9 to 5, and we attracted a lot of female people to come in, and the numbers are right down for females. It's just to flag it up that was the way we solved a problem years ago.
So thank you very much, Councillor, for that. So I'll cover the first point with you. Obviously, I don't have any real impact on that, and the suggestion could certainly come from us to say that, and we could discuss that with our Police Scotland colleagues and say for road safety, it's an aspect that could be considered. What I would say is that most of our HGV drivers are pretty good. They're the ones that we'll find a space and we'll pull over. Most of them are very good at that. But however, land maintenance has become probably a real bone of contention, because that's been a way to save money for councils and local authorities, which is why we now experience increased wildfires, flooding, because forestry breaks are not getting done, drains are not getting cleaned, foliage isn't being cut back. Because I've experienced that as well. I'm looking to try and stop in the car sometimes, and you're just, oh, there's a lay-by, I've passed it. I'll take that to our colleagues and I'll have that conversation and see if that's a consideration. But I do know, speaking maybe in 2020 to a transport manager, I think there's like an 80 million deficit to repair and sort all the roads in Highland, and he had a budget of about 8 million. So he's got to prioritise what he thinks are requirements. So I'll certainly go back and have that conversation. It might be an easy fix, and it might be something that makes a difference. So I appreciate that. Lochaber, you're spot on. It was actually recognised as a station for a large number of females there. Unfortunately, we run into a little bit of maybe what we call a political situation when we changed the appliance there, and we lost a number of our staff who are unhappy with what they considered to be a downgrade at that time. I think Councillor Fannett will see that we've worked quite hard to bring more and more women into the Lochaber and Ardmurchan area. Rianne is my full-time officer down there, and she does an absolutely phenomenal job working and trying to get people in. So please be assured that we do consider these things as well. She's got a female there, but unfortunately she's just not quite hitting the fitness target. So we do consider that, and we have no disparity between males or females for joining, and it's part of the conversations that we've got that national on-call practitioner group of how we make the job more attractive to people as well as some of the challenges that we face at this moment in time. But I do appreciate the comments, but please be assured that has been thought about. Absolutely.
Mike, can I just make one quick point about the HGVs pulling off the road? Because I remember speaking to an HGV driver about it, and he says, all too often, Thomas, he says, I want to pull over. I want to let build up a traffic behind me, get past me. But he says, you come round the corner, there's a lay-by there, and it's got one car, and it's parked right in the middle, he says. When I said to him about have ones that are blocked off for the views terrible, and at the next one the views, he said that would work. He says it would help us to be able to get off the road, because quite often he says you'll find one small car blocking the entire, it's parked right in the middle and we can't roll off the road. So
no, and I appreciate that. And there's very few of us, because I've driven the fire appliances, so I know what it's like to drive an HGV. So there's very few drivers on the roads who understand the implications of HGVs and vehicles, because that moment in time when you park your car in a car park, that's you as an individual considering your needs at that time. You're not thinking about anybody else at that point. I think if the HGV pulled at the back and maybe tooted his horn, he might find the car moves forward a little bit. Okay. Okay, I don't know. Is that all for us today?
Sorry, just one quick question from me. Good to regarding wildfires and Muirburn, and at previous meetings I have asked questions about Muirburn. It's good to see that you've got plans coming up to engage with landowners and land managers, because as we know, some wildfires are started by controlled Muirburn. So I did ask some questions at our previous area committee meeting that I'm still waiting for answers on. So if I could perhaps pass them on.
Please, by all means, even if you want to email them to me, I'm more than happy to take them. I would suggest that Muirburn tends to be a little controversial. It's done for a very good reason. However, what I would say that there's one or two of the crofters or landowners that maybe don't take the appropriate, safety precautions that they should do. There are not as many that are deliberate. There are many of them are accidental, and that's the problem that we have, and how we get that message across. One of the things that Scottish Government has asked is the reduction of deer within, I think it was a reduction 20, I think it's to be 20 deer per square kilometre going forward, and that's going to increase the sort of fire loading element of what we'll have as well. So there's a few things that are coming together that are making it a little bit more challenging. But please, by all means, even if you want to do it later, get in touch with me directly or email me. I'll take that away for you and I'll have those conversations.
Yeah, it was basically the last meeting. There were Muirburn fires being set outside the Muirburn season, and I wondered why this was. They were registered fires, and I just wondered why this was allowed, because it's outside the season and it was during the hot spell and they got out of control. So I think it would be good to know.
What I would say in relation to that is obviously the Muirburn season, it was extended, I think, in COVID. However, there's a very defined date that it finishes. Should anybody burn outside that Muirburn season, then that's Police Scotland's responsibility then to have a conversation with them, because that would be land management that's not approved at that point. So we can't stop people, you know, as fire and rescue. We're not there to stop people doing it. We're there to try and encourage and do it in a safe and controlled fashion. But Police Scotland are the individuals that would then take that forward. So I don't know whether you'd be better speaking to Ross about that one, Ross McCartney. He's the current police inspector for Fort William area.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's just, I guess my understanding was that fires were registered with the fire service. So
they're certainly registered with us because we have to deal with them. But when it comes to legislative and then that sort of responsibility for managing individuals, that then becomes, and particularly if they're outside the expectations of the Muirburn season, Police Scotland would have to take that forward. I do know there's not an awful lot of prosecutions. I'm very aware of that, and we really have to have the problem that we've got, and I have had this in Skye previously, is we had a number of fires where we did actually lose property in some of them, and it's actually evidence. That's the issue we have. Who set that fire? How did that fire start? Was it deliberate? Was it accidental? Was it careless? So Police Scotland have to deal with that side of things, I'm afraid, rather than ourselves.
Okay, thank you very much. And do we have any? No, we've got no more questions. So thank you very much for the report and for joining us this morning. Okay, so we're just. I think we all agree that we've looked at, commented, and scrutinised the area performance report. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, councillors. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So moving on to item 5. The Highland Youth Work in Lochaber report, and we have got online John Taylor, the Area Youth Officer, Caitlin Munro, the Highland Youth Convener, and our Local Youth Development Officers, Rachel Carmichael, Karen Gillespie, and Mary Barker. So thank you very much for joining us this morning and for the report. I'm not sure who would like to start first.
Hello.
I think John.
Hello, Chair, and good morning, members. So, yeah, thank you for the invite. Really appreciate the offer, and yeah, we're kind of quite excited to come and talk to you this morning. Yeah, so we've got Cara with us from Kinloch-Leven, we've got Rachel and Mary from Fort William, and we've got Caitlin, who is the Highland Youth Convener. So, yeah, I'd like to draw your attention to the report and the recommendations that are in there, and happy to take questions on that. What we sort of plan to do this morning is to go through a presentation that we put together to hopefully put a little bit more detail to the report, and hopefully give a bit more of an overview of our service and sort of what's been happening over the last few years, because it's been a few years since we came and talked to the committee. So if that's okay with you, I will share my screen and start this PowerPoint off.
Yep, thanks.
Second.
Thanks, John.
So has that come through?
Yes. Yep. All good.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yep, I've already kind of sort of covered this slide. So this is who's with us this morning. This is, I suppose, giving you a strategic overview of our service and the sort of policy backdrop that exists, and also how that kind of shapes our operational delivery. So we've got the sort of three sort of policies that we kind of align to, which is the Highland Outcome Improvement Plan, the CLD plan, and the Highland Youth Work Strategy. Now, broadly speaking, within each of those 3 policies, there are key themes in there for young people, being health and well-being, participation in voice, and opportunities for employment and learning. So within our own operational guidance and the way that youth work in Highland is aligned, then that broadly translates to our 3 youth work strands, which are get involved, get heard, and get on. So get involved is about engagement with young people. Get heard is about voice and participation with young people. And get on is about accreditation and informal learning. So let's move on to the next slide. So the service, this is the structure of the service. So we've got a youth work manager, which is Nigel, and then the area is split up into, or Highland is split up into 3 geographical areas, mid, north and south, and I'm one of those 3 area officers, and I've got geographical kind of responsibility for the south area, and particularly Lochaber is one of those areas where I've got responsibility for. So the service is shaped in Highland. There are 29 ASGs, and what you will find is there is a youth development officer in each ASG. Depending on, I suppose, the composition of that ASG, sometimes there'll be a 0.5 FTE youth development officer. Sometimes there'll be a full-time YDO, but in the case of Fort William, there's actually a 1.5 FTE of youth development officers. Within our service as well, there are 3 specialist areas. We've got a particular focus around youth participation, and within that encompasses the Highland Youth Parliament, the Highland Youth Convener, and the Scottish Youth Parliament. And the other specialist area is around achievement. We operate the Duke of Edinburgh licence on behalf of the council. It comes in under that, as well as some other licences that we operate, which is a Youth Scotland licence and the SQA licence. And the other aspect is around the High Life Highland Leadership Programme. So they're the 3 specialist areas. We also have a funding officer. That funding officer is shared with our colleagues in adult learning, and their sole responsibility is to go out and seek for external funding to support our work and other projects. And the other last thing there is the youth convener. We've got Caitlin as well, which she also features as part of the service. So sort of just zooming in slightly now into Lochaber. So the team in Lochaber consists of 2 full-time YDOs. You've got Mary in Fort William and Cara in Kinlochleven. And then there's 3 part-time youth development officers. We've got Rachel in Fort William. We've got Helen in Merkin and Lee in Mallaig. And broadly speaking, we're now supported by about 20 hours of assistant youth worker time across those areas. In Lochaber, just looking over the last sort of financial year, then there were 644 activities, which accounted to 9,822 contacts, and that led to 27,202 learning hours with young people. So what I'm going to do now is hand over to Cara, and hopefully, and what she'll do is give you a much more detailed overview of the work that's going on in Kinlochleven. So, Cara.
Hi guys, I'm Cara and I'm the full-time YDO for Kinlochleven. I think I'd still be here tomorrow if I was to talk about all the work that goes on in all our areas. So I'll just pull a couple of the main kind of projects that I've been working on down the road. The Learning Offer in Kinloch, during term time, we run a youth club once a week, and we run a youth forum, which is linked into the Highland Youth Parliament once fortnightly down there. Youth work is mainly delivered through the community hub of the Leaving Centre, and I pop into the high school and the primary now and again as well, but the main hub that we use is the Leaving Centre. And we also run targeted projects, so I get referrals from other agencies, social work, that and such like, do one-to-ones, after school kind of things if they're struggling or anything like that. And we also run holiday programmes, so summer programme, and make sure that there's stuff on for the kids when schools are off. One of the most recent projects has been the upgrading of the play parks in Kinloch-Leven, Park Road one being the main one. My involvement and the young people's involvement, well, my involvement was to get the young people involved in that project to kind of enhance a sense of ownership amongst the youth in the village, partly to kind of deter any kind of vandalism or mistreatment of the park, and secondly because it's actively going to be their space, so they should have an active say in what kind of goes there. So I supported some of the youth forum members that go to attend the meetings, to attend the play park committee meetings, which were chaired by members of the community and Jane Young, who's no longer in post, I don't believe, for the Highland Council. Our kind of role was to get young people's views and to help choose the equipment that was going to be placed in the play parks. And I'm happy to say that I think Park Road is almost, if not completed, almost completed. So, and they're looking to develop further areas, communal areas, for not just young people but for the whole community to use, which is great, in use of green spaces. So that was one of the most recent things, and that was in line with our Get Heard stream. Another one of the projects that we ran kind of late last year and at the start of this year was the Life Skills Group, and that focus was on kind of getting young people on board with budgeting and kind of cooking on a budget. So these young people were aged kind of 14 to kind of 16, and the idea of it was to try and get their headspace into a more of a kind of independent kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah. So we done it was a 6 or 8 week block, and every week we had different budget recipes, and they took turns. You can see in one of the photos there, one of the young people cooking up a storm. And we looked at kind of CV building and interview skills, that kind of stuff. We would chat about the SQA systems and their exams coming up and studying and all that kind of stuff. And it was quite well attended. We had about 6 or 7 young people attend, and out of those, there was a number of those that secured their Youth Achievement Awards through that block as well. So that was pretty good. They managed to get their Youth Achievement Awards and leadership stuff as well, so that was really good. And another one of the projects that we done in conjunction with, you might have heard about it, was the Ewan's Room Wellbeing Champions project, and the idea of that was to support young people, to support other young people, basically be able to talk about mental health without, like, as a conversation starter and with ease, without kind of any anxiety-based feelings, or, you know, if they were to go to a session, then other young people would be there to kind of champion that conversation. The project, it was really quite successful, and as a result of that, we rolled out these toolkits from Ewan's Room, and the idea of the toolkits was basically if in schools they've got a kind of quiet room or a like a safe space in the school or the community centres or wherever, that the toolkits would just kind of be dotted about, and there's like fidgets and everything. It was just really to open up opportunities to talk about mental health in a kind of positive and safe environment. So yeah, that worked really, really well. We were invited to discuss that at the Highland Youth Parliament and stuff as well, myself and Anna McBride from Ewan's Room, with some of the young people that were involved in that project. And they too got Youth Achievement Awards from that as well. I think looking forward, obviously new term's coming up, so I'm currently working on a term plan for the new term and how that's going to look on a weekly basis. I do like to have a set number of youth activities on after school every week for the young people to attend. Engagement in Kinloch leaving can be quite challenging. I always find it's best to target the younger ones, and then it kind of infiltrates from there. But yeah, that engagement can be a challenge for that area. But other than that, I think that's me from Kinloch leaving. I think I'll pass you on to Fort William. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and councillors. Thank you very much for having us. I'm Rachel. I'm the part-time Youth Development Officer for Fort William. And I get to talk to you today a little bit about Cool Youth Centre and about Youth Forum activities currently going on. So yeah, Cool Youth Centre is our main hub for drop-ins and activities. We see a variety of young people from 12 to 18 come and drop into our sessions weekly. We run a Wednesday and a Thursday night currently from 7 o'clock until roughly about 9:30, sometimes 10 o'clock if the conversation's good, or if there's something meaty that we need to get kind of done and dusted with that young person, or maybe a referral forward onto another agency or whatever. But yeah, we predominantly run on a Wednesday and Thursday night. As and when we can open up the centre for extra additional sessions, predominantly on a Tuesday if it's for specific project work. So yeah, the kind of the focus in these sessions is life skills, lifestyle, vaping, drug and alcohol use and harm reduction, sexual health, mental health, and LGBTQ+ support as well. We've seen a lot of young people succumb to stigma, bullying and such like, and they had required a safe space to go and learn along with their allies about safer LGBTQ+ issues. And meet with like-minded young people who are on a supportive level with them as they faced, considerate amounts of, stigma and bullying. So we've opened up a Thursday night for that, and that's been really successful. Our youth forum is an active group as well, and we meet mostly weekly. There's always some sort of issue for them to bring to the table that they're not best happy about in their community, whether it be travel and buses or lack of, or trains being off, or the ability to get in and out on the A82 if there's been accidents and things like that. The young people are very considerate around their transport, and they have a lot of views on being quite often stuck in Fort William with the one road in and one road out. So that's quite often a topic of conversation, is travel. Again, another topic that is really common to be brought up is bullying and their safety in the community. Not that long ago, we had some interactions with the police, and they came over and a young person said that they would like to see more of them out on the street and to be more visible and to build up better relationships with the police. And we were quite shocked by that. We didn't anticipate young people, you know, wishing and wanting to have better relationships with the police. But yeah, that was one of the main factors for that young person, was that they wanted to feel a bit safer out and about in their community. So yeah, our youth forum is really active. Always lots to talk about, and we feed into the Highland Youth Parliament, which Caitlin will tell you a little bit about, and the Scottish Youth Parliament as well. We have a young person from Fort William who sits on Scottish Youth Parliament as well. So it's really important that we retain these positions, and we encourage the young people to always have a voice and a platform for that voice going forward. So that's just a wee bit, an oversight, a very quick oversight of Cool Youth Centre and the work that we're doing in there. And I'll pass you on to Mary Barker. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Mary Barker. Thanks, Rachel. I want to talk about the street work project we have here in Fort William. It's been ongoing for 20 odd years at least. And it's working out with the young people on their terms. So it's not facility based, which I quite like working like that. So there's no rules as such, and young people seek us out. They come to us on their terms. They speak to us when they want. They don't when they don't want, and we build up really good relationships with them. From that comes extra support that we can give them out with the street work project. So we do different types of awards with them. We do different group work with them. We do just everything, like through the school. We work really well with the school. We take them out of school for detach them from the school to do some group work with them. We've just last year started up the football. That came from the street work project and youth action team. And when young people were asked what they wanted to do, they said they wanted to have a kickabout with the cops. So there were 6 referred young people that started that, and we started over at the high school with a football project, and it grew from 6 to 60 in a matter of months, and that's still ongoing, and it's really well attended. And from that, we've taken them on trips. We've done other group work with them. So from the street work project, these other projects develop, and not a lot of people realise that these other projects are developing from that. They think we just walk up and down the street and that's all we do. I wish. So yeah, we've had a load of awards come through, especially after COVID. We worked a lot more closely with partners that we didn't used to work with so closely, and built up projects around that. Room 13, Youth Action Team, Social Work, Police. So we've worked a lot with them on different projects. And they've got, I think, during Education Recovery Programme, with that funding, we managed to get 18 or 20 through their awards. And these awards are ongoing with just a variety of different things we do. Lots of partners we work with. Environmental group, we work in the bike kitchen. We do one-to-one with young people struggling at school. We do group work with a group of girls, ASN girls from the high school and ones that have left school. Also do group work and one-to-ones with individuals from the high school and from Ancala. Do group work with them every week. What else do we do? Yeah, just ongoing awards and group work as and when needed. So a lot of the stuff that happens on the street, we can see who's involved. We have a relationship with them, therefore they partake better in the group work with us. I'm not sure what else to say about it all. What else? Oh, who moved that? And that takes us to the challenges. Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to start or do I want to carry on waffling?
Absolutely, yeah. You carry on, Mary.
Service provision for young people in crisis is a major major issue with me. We have Ewan's Room, we have Lochaber Hope, and we have lots of good work going on with mental health issues in the community. But what I find, and I've found, Thomas, you'll know this, over the years, this has been brought up time and time again, with no crisis services available for young people in the Highlands, in Fort William, except for Inverness. There's a big gap there, especially for 16 to 18-year-olds when they're transitioning from childhood to adulthood, allegedly, but they don't transition like run-of-the-mill kid. Do you know what I mean? They have their issues, and they don't go away when they're 16, and they don't go away when they're 18. They continue to have these issues. And we're finding more and more, unfortunately, these issues, they're solving them by completing suicide. And we support these young people right through. I'm supporting kids that I worked with that were like 13, 14. I'm still working them, and they're nearly 30 years old. They see us as the safe space to come to, but it's so frustrating that when they come to us, we have nowhere to put them. Do you know what I mean? We have nowhere to pass them on to because of the waiting lists. It's unbelievable how that deficit in that service for young people is. And it's been an ongoing thing for ages, and it seems to be getting worse rather than better. And I have no idea what to do about that, but something needs to be done with these issues, because we're just losing young people at a rate of crazy the amount of completed suicides we have in Fort William. And I just think that's a major big gap, and that's one of the biggest challenges that I personally face, is this ongoing fight to get something. And I don't know what the answer is, but I do know that we need something for young people in crisis in Fort William. And local. Yeah. And the other issues.
Sorry, Mary.
Carry on.
Yeah, the reductions in service for our partner agencies as well. It massively impacts our ability to undertake our own work as well, especially when there are roles and responsibilities and the gaps, glaringly obvious gaps within social work and other partner agencies, and these positions not being able to be filled locally leaves us kind of on the grassroots front line, holding a lot of young people with nowhere to go and no direct signposting opportunities. So that it has been a real challenge leading up to summer, and continues to be. Staffing levels in our official partner agencies, such as the police as well, and the reduction in their service has impacted our ability to do our jobs as well. So, yeah, that targeted work that we're often involved in with these agencies then comes down and lands on our shoulders. And we're fortunate that between myself and Mary and Cara, we've got substantial years of experience and lots of quality training that High Life Highland has provided us to be able to shoulder that responsibility. But it's actually far beyond our pay grade and our expertise and our responsibilities to continue to shoulder that responsibility. So we would like to see some sort of solution found to the gaps in service that we are seeing and the young people are seeing and identifying. And that leads us on to the myth of, there's nothing for young people to do. There are plenty for young people to do in Fort William, and youth work is not responsible for tackling antisocial behaviour, despite what social media might be telling you. And there's no provision here, there's no provision there. There are plenty of provisions for young people, but it just needs that kind of parental involvement. It needs that young person to want to go and access that. And it's often down to financial support as well, that the young people can then access that adequately. But certainly we feel that we've been given a bit of a tough time over COVID and the the kind of coming out the other side of COVID, that youth work is responsible for the antisocial behaviour that happens within Fort William. And it's really not. You know, we can't open the doors and expect young people to come and access their service if it's not their thing. We can't bring the horses to water and make them drink. You know, it's that kind of perception of we're responsible in solving those issues. We find quite challenging and quite stressful, in fact, sometimes. And again, we're lucky that we've been in long enough to have the thick skin and to be able to bounce the negative commentary from social medias and things like that off and not take it to heart too much. But Mary, you've got fantastic partnerships, and as do I. And I think you want to talk about a wee bit about your partnerships and the ongoing work.
Yeah, it's just in relation to that last point that a lot of people see us out and about, they see us in youth club and they think that's all we do. But we do much deeper stuff. You know, like we do a lot of stuff that the general public don't know about. And as an educational practice, you know, like social and educational development, all of that is done out with like our normal youth clubs and street work times. So through COVID, I formed lots of different partnerships because I was on my own. So I had to get somebody to work with me while nobody else was out. And we did a really good project with Room 13, the Bike Kitchen, the Environmental Group's Bike Kitchen, and Cala. We'd supported a lot of their young people, and we formed these partnerships that have been ongoing, and they've worked really, really well. And it's allowed us to do different types of work because we have the manpower to do it. Whereas if it was just us, we wouldn't have the manpower to be able to be doing all the different things that we do. We're back down to 2 nights a week on the street when we were doing 6 during Education Recovery funding when that was available. So that was really good. We were out 6 nights a week and we covered like all areas at that time, working with primary school kids, older teenagers and older teenagers. So that was really good. But we've gone back down to only 2 nights a week, and that's frustrating because we can't cover the amount of area that we used to do. And it's just the ongoing, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do? There was a group of kids in this high street at 5 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing? Like, unfortunately, that's about the only time I don't work. I do get to sleep. So, you know, the expectations of the community sometimes is frustrating because it's like, what do you expect me to do? Like, we are only a small group. We can only do so much, and it's not only our responsibility to do that. But lots of new projects happening coming up. So, yeah, Rachel, do you want to talk about well, I'll talk about the community field first. Youth Forum are really involved in the community field that we managed to get over at Cool. Hoping that's finished, done and dusted now. I haven't been over for a week, so I've been off, so I'm excited to see it this week when I go over. And hopefully we'll use that space for community. The school can use it, we can use it, and it's open to everybody. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. Hopefully the community will embrace it. I'm hearing a bit about not keen on it being there, but I can't see why. It's one of the only green spaces in Cool, which we found through lockdown that every time we went to play rounders or something like that, there wasn't a patch of grass that we could play anything like that on. There was only the Mugget in Cool. So the young people were asking, why can't we play on that piece of ground? But it was too dangerous at the time. So that evolved into us getting funding and making that a green space that's open to everybody. So hopefully that goes well. It's going to be quite exciting just to see how it works out. I think the community will come round, and I think they'll use it as much as the young people will, hopefully. Yeah, Rachel, your new project.
Yeah, we've just been successful in attaining £10,000 for a new project that focuses on the 3 R's: reduce, reuse and recycle.
Guys. Can you just hang on a sec? Kate's got something to say.
Right. We thank you very much for the presentation. And if you could we just have a very quick summary of the challenges and opportunities, and then if we could ask some questions, please. We completely appreciate all the hard work and the fantastic work that's going on. Are you happy just to summarise the challenges and opportunities, and if we could have some question time, thanks.
Yes, absolutely. I think we're happy to let you have a wee browse of the looking ahead slide, and then we can answer any questions. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much for it's just fantastic all the work that you're doing. I think has anyone got any questions? Angus?
I've got one. And I know you said that the antisocial behaviour of kids is not your sort of core aim, but it's a big thing in the centre of the town, and it seems to me that there's a gang, well, not even a gang, a group of boys aged 15, and many of the retailers have been to the police, and somebody's got things on video, and they were on the roof of the cinema about 2 or 3 months ago, and the police seem to have their hands tied behind their back and what they can do about these guys, and they say they go to the parents, but there's very often a single mother who's looking after them, and discipline is weak. Do you think that you've got the support you need from legislation or the police, which allows us to have a pathway to stopping very bad behaviour by, say, 15-year-old boys, which seems to be the group that's terrorising the town?
Yeah, we don't have any means of stopping them. We do know who you're talking about. This has been an ongoing issue for months now. We do phone the police. Sometimes the police are too busy and can't attend, or don't have the staff to be able to attend at the time, which makes it difficult for us to have any control over them. But we are working with that group of boys, and it's ongoing work, but it's not going to solve the issues in the town centre, where they are running riot. They've been on the roof of the cinema, they've been on the roof of Nevis Sport. Yeah, I'm not sure what the solution is, but we cannot be there all the time. And when we are there, they usually listen to us. They usually come down off wherever they are, and they usually don't act like that when we are there. But we're only there 2 nights a week for 2.5 hours per night. So the rest of the time, it's down to the police.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think Sarah's got a question, and then Thomas.
Yes. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and again, big well done for all the hard work in difficult conditions. Just a question. You know that the Scottish Rural and Highlands Parliament will be held in Fort William between the 1st and 3rd of November this year. It would be good to have some. Any plans to have some youth representation at that Parliament?
Hi, Sarah. Yeah, we're aware of the development and the Nevis Centre holding this event, but we haven't as yet been asked to contribute or to have young people present to be a part of that. But we would absolutely love the opportunity if you could, help and support us with that. We can definitely facilitate some young people to be present and involved in that process. If we could catch up about that, that would be great.
I have just had, on my return from annual leave, I've had an email from, I can't remember her name, for a meet up with us. So that's still to happen.
Perfect.
So we are going to meet. We were aware of it, but we hadn't been included in it at all until recently. So hopefully we will be quite involved in that.
There we go. Great.
Thomas has a
Oh.
question.
Thanks very much. Yeah, thanks very much for the report. You know, you people do an incredibly important job, you know, working with the youth. They are our future, after all, and we don't fund it properly. And Mary, you're absolutely right when you said about that gap for that age group, and that is something that we seriously need to look at as soon as possible. Within reason, if I was to be able to wave a magic wand and say, right, we'll give you your wish, what can you see as a way to solve these problems that are coming up? And I don't want a big, long, convoluted discussion, but just, have you got any short, punchy things that you could say, well, that's something that we need? And as I say, funds are totally restricted, but what kind of solutions or things would you say we need to be aware of to try and push for to get used the equipment, the tools, the funding to solve the problems?
The thing is, Thomas...
Sorry, just a short and simple answer, I believe, for that would be a mass investment in all services, because it's every service plays its part in dealing with every kind
definitely agree with that.
Every kind of issue that communities face, and I think police. That's the short answer. Investment in every service.
In every service, so that
community.
Yeah, we can't fix it all. We try, but we can't unless we've got the backing of other services. We cannot do any more. I don't know. We can do more. We could be out every single night of the week. Would that solve it? I don't know. Unless we had the backing of other services, social work, police. You know, no waiting lists for young people to be seen by.
When you say if you had the backing with other services, do you feel there's a lack of communication with these services? And when you say services, which ones specifically are you talking about?
No, I don't think there's lack of communication. We are all communicating, but lack of, like the police short-staffed, social work short-staffed. There's positions waiting, you know, like not being filled in both areas. And I'm not saying that's their fault. I'm just saying all across the board, all services have this reduction in staff or non-availability of staff. You know, to be able to do the work. A lot of the work we've been doing in the last year has involved the primary schools, looking at transition work before they get to that age when they're older, working with families. We've been doing group work with primary 4, 5, 6 and 7, working with families with Jill, I can't remember her title, she's children's service worker that works in Inverness, but she comes down here to do work with children that have been put back into the community from care. So we started these different projects with them, hoping to target the younger ones and their families. A lot more work needs to be done with the families of these young people, because the young people in the street, you know, everybody's saying there's nothing for them to do, that's why they're hanging out the street. That's lies. That is not true. There's plenty of young people that have got lots of things to do. They choose to do what they do. And unless there's something done with them, do you know what I mean? It's okay, you can go and see the parents. The police do go and see the parents and that, but there's no difference in their behaviour. Maybe we need to step it up a bit. Maybe somebody needs to take that a bit further and do. And I'm not wanting to criminalise young people at all, but when their behaviour is criminal like that, there needs to be some consequence to the behaviours that they're showing. And I find just now that that's not happening. Back in the day, we used to have a lot of different initiatives that we could do, 10-day place of safety when they were out of parental control. There was different things. They don't have that now, and I don't know what they've replaced that with. I don't think they've replaced it with anything. I think that's why we have what we have. And the thing that I can't get over, like back in the day, again, when they were doing these things, they were full of drink. We always had the antisocial behaviour, but it was always at the weekend. They were full of drink, they were mucking about, and it was always like you could put it down to, right, okay, because they were pissed. These guys are stone cold sober. They have no respect for anything or anybody. And I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't know what. Although when we work with them one-to-one and in group work, we do get that respect of them, and we do get the respect of them on the street when we're there. But when we're not there, There's not a lot we can do about it. So I don't know what the answer to it is.
It's very concerning when you see the three of you who are in the front line all nodding in agreement when you say basically we need to be more robust in the way that we deal with them. And if I could just focus in one other area, like that, like you said about something, a place to take children that are, well, older children that basically that are ending up committing suicide. What can you give us as a steer on how would you like to tackle that one aspect where you've got a young person who's in a completely chaotic kind of lifestyle? What could we do?
I'd like to see a crisis place of safety in Fort William, somewhere that police or ourselves or the ambulance or something can take these young people and not just letting them out in the morning with nothing, because we've had that. We've had them in hospital. They've been let out 2 hours later when they've recovered from whatever they've tried to do, and then they've gone on to complete. There needs to be a much bigger, and it's not up to the Belford to do that. I realise that it's not the Belfords, but there should be a crisis point somewhere that all the services can get together and intensely work with these young people. Because in my experience, most of the young people we've lost recently have all attempted in the weeks beforehand, and not just one attempt, 2 and 3 and 4 attempts, and they've been taken to hospital, they've been put on a waiting list, and then they complete before they get anywhere.
Okay, well, thanks very much for that, Mary, and spelling it out so eloquently. We've all got the message, I'm sure. Thanks.
Sorry, Thomas, can I just interject as well, just as another quick point? I think it goes a little bit deeper than just young people when they get to maybe 12 to 18 kind of age. I see that there has been significant reduction to NHS expectant mothers care as well. You know, there used to be neonatal classes, your pre-baby classes and things like that all happening locally. The poor midwives couldn't find any funding for the expectant mothers classes, and they haven't been able to find appropriate venues to hold them in. So these things all trigger a knock-on domino effect. If you start young with the parents being supported by agencies, they then know where to go for the help when they need it as well. And I don't think there's enough in our town being done for parents and to support parents in knowing what to maybe be able to do with their children and their young people. And that whole, you know, it takes a village to raise a child. I think everybody's happy to just say, oh, well, it's such and such's responsibility, it's not mine. And maybe coming back to that, it takes a village and a community of tolerance and acceptance to raise a child. And that's what I see. There's a considerable amount of intolerance and a lack of resources put into children and babies, you know, from the very beginning. That needs to be looked at, and a support put there for expectant parents to know and undertake, you know, know what they're undertaking as well, especially when they are, you know, on the kind of teenage side and early 20s. Sorry, just an extra wee point there.
Okay, thanks very much for that. And I will definitely come back for a chat with you after this meeting. But I agree totally. We get out of children what we put into children.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel and Thomas. I think John's got his hand up. If we could wind up, it would also be great for a quick wind up and summary from Caitlin, our Highland Youth Convener, before we wind up this session and move on to the next item.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, that's what I was coming on to say, just to kind of give Caitlin the space now to come and talk for a few minutes. So with that, I'll leave it to Caitlin.
Sorry, if I can just quickly pop a question in, Mary.
John.
Sorry.
Caitlin's going to follow up afterwards. Caitlin, hello. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, nice to see you all. Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here. So yeah, I don't have a PowerPoint, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to briefly talk through some of the stuff that I've been up to this year. I'm sure some of you will probably be aware of some of the stuff that I've done, but I'm just going to keep it brief and just talk through some of the stuff. So Yeah, so when I first came into this post, I was really keen to meet with the young people of Highland face to face and have these general conversations with them about where they live, as well as talking to them about what's available in their areas, because I think the face to face contact was really lost during the pandemic, and I was really keen to try and build that connection back up again. I was also really keen to promote the youth convener role, because I don't think many young people were aware that this role exists, and with it being such an important role for them as well, I was really keen to make sure that they were fully aware of the role and what it involves. So with these priorities in mind, I decided to plan a roadshow which covered all of the 9 community planning partnership areas, and in total I was delighted that I managed to complete 20 visits to various groups of young people all across Highland, including Lochaber. So one of these visits was to the after school club at Ardnamurchan High School. The turnout for this visit was absolutely brilliant, with around 12 to 15 young people attending, and it was so nice to see them really keen and enthusiastic to find out more about the youth convener role and to meet me as well, which was really nice. And as this again was their first time meeting and hearing about the youth convener, I started by explaining what the role involves, as well as my journey into this role. I think it was really important for them to hear from me first. I think that allowed them to be more open, and it built a really great foundation, which led to some really good discussions, with them being really keen to chat to me about the area as well as the issues that they face. And for them, the key issue that they raised, which was mentioned previously, was transport. And this was also mentioned at the other groups that I'd visited across Highland as well, which was highlighted, and it shows that it is one of the main problems that young people in Highland face. It was a really long day and a really long drive, but it was totally worth it. And it really showed the geography of Highland and just how far people travel to attend events which are very much Inverness centric, I believe. We have recently just held the Highland Youth Parliament Conference, where young people from all across the Highland attended. So representing Lochaber, we had 2 young people from Ardnamurchan, we had 2 from Cool, 4 from Kinlochleven, as well as the MSYP from Lochaber, who is also on the HYP exec. I also work closely with HYP exec to help organise the conference, and this year the theme that we chose was education, and this again was a topic which was chosen and agreed on by young people. Because obviously education is such a key aspect of their lives, and it's really important for them to be able to discuss any issues that they have regarding education. So we held the education Q&A panel, which again proved to be very popular among the young people, and as always it was great to see them asking lots of questions and being really confident in wanting to get answers from our panel experts. We also held a transport session in response to this being talked about on the roadshows. Young people were very enthusiastic about this workshop. However, ironically, the young people from Lochaber had to leave early to catch the ferry. But the information from this session will be shared with the young people alongside the conference report, which we're hoping to get out shortly once it's all completed and we have all the information from the different sessions that we had during the event. So overall, the feedback from the conference, it was very positive from the day, with many saying that they really enjoyed the sessions and the workshops that was provided as well. The activities that were on offer as well, they also really enjoyed that as well. So following on from the conference, like I said, we are in the process of putting together the conference report with photos from the day, as well as thoughts and outcomes of the day as well. This will be shared around once it has been finished, and we also have a number of questions that young people didn't get the chance to ask during the Q&A panel, just due to a tight schedule, but the panel members were happy to answer these, so we can pass these answers on to young people once the panel members have sent in the answers. So one of my priorities that I also wanted to focus on was to create a social media presence to promote this role. So Facebook and Instagram were the main platforms that I wanted to use because I felt like I was more likely to engage with young people through these. So again, using these platforms, it allowed me to post about the roadshows, share where I had been and what we talked about, and to share different themed weeks and events for young people to get involved in as well. And this enabled me to promote this role through the power of social media, and it ensured that young people were kept in the loop with what I was doing too. I mainly used Instagram because it allowed me to post questions, different polls, and really get young people involved with what I was doing. And that's, like I said at the start, that was what I wanted to do, was really to promote this role and get young people involved in it as well. So finally, I would just like to say a massive thank you to everyone who has supported me throughout the year and took the time to speak to me. It has been absolutely amazing getting to work with everyone, meeting so many wonderful groups of young people across the Highlands as well. And I would also like to wish my successor, Orla MacLeod, all the best in this role, and I know that she will be absolutely brilliant in it. So she officially takes over from me on Monday the 28th of August, and I really hope that you can give her as much support as you have all given me. So thank you very much for your time today, and I'm happy to take any questions if we have time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Caitlin, and I hope it's like you've had a very busy year and that you've enjoyed it. And yeah, we look forward to catching up with Orla. I think if we could just have one question, and I think we could I think we can continue discussions perhaps at another area business meeting, and I think we should get Orla along to join us at an area business meeting. So if anyone, we'll do just one question. Sorry, Caitlin, but thank you again. Has anyone got a question? Oh. You might be let off the hook.
Sure.
No?
It's your question, Caitlin.
Okay, so, yeah.
What opportunities actually has this role given you, which will lead you to new paths after you leave this role?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think this role has certainly boosted my confidence. You know, I've always enjoyed youth work, like before I started this role, and it's kind of given me that belief and the confidence that it is something that I want to do and it is something that I want to pursue. I've been really lucky enough to be able to get a job working within sport and youth work combined, which is two things that I really enjoy. I love sport, I love leadership, and to be able to combine the two has been absolutely brilliant, and this role has really helped me to secure that job. And I think, like I say, with the confidence boost that it's given me, as well as the experience with talking to different groups as well, I'm really looking forward to getting started with it and using all the skills that I've learned from this and the contacts that I've met from this post. I'm really looking forward to utilising all of that into the new post that I've got for the future.
Thanks very much, Caitlin. Did you have a very quick question, Thomas?
I was just want to highlight something very quickly. I first went on the council 20 years ago, Caitlin, and there was 80 councillors at that time. 71 of them were men and 9 of them were women. I was the second youngest and I was 40, so I was probably nearly the closest thing to you on the Highland Council back then. But it's refreshing to see that we're now got more of a gender balance, and that we hear young people's voices in that chamber. So thanks very much for what you said today.
No, thank you.
Thanks, Thomas. So thank you all again for joining us today and for the report. I think I'm sure we're all, well, I would hope we're all happy to agree the recommendations of the report, and I think it would be good to continue the discussions at a future area business meeting. So we'll be in touch, and thank you for all the fantastic work you're doing.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
So our next item is the Lochaber Area Roads Winter Service Plan, item 6, and Tracy and Gary are joining us in the room. What's that? Hello. Thank you very much for joining us. Sorry for the probably a bit later than we thought you might be, so thank you very much for waiting and coming in. So this is item 6, the Lochaber Area Road Winter Service Plan. I think, yes, are you happy to take?
I'm happy to
this on,
take this.
Tracy?
I am, yes. Hopefully most of you will have got my note to say that unfortunately Richard can't be with you today. So I'm presenting the report that he's written on the Winter Service Plan. So if there's any queries that I can't handle, I have my trusty colleague Gary with me, Gary Kennedy. I think most of you will know Gary. Gary's currently covering Mark Smith's post because Mark retired a couple of weeks ago and we're looking to recruit someone permanently, but Gary's here to support me today as well. Okay?
Sorry to interrupt. Can you maybe move the microphone down to the other end of the table?
Okay, can you hear me now, Councillor? Yes. Oh, we can. Okay, so the paper before you today, members, is the Winter Service Plan for the Lochaber area. The service plan has been prepared in accordance with the Council's Winter Service Policy, and it's a policy which sets out the priorities for how we treat roads and the target times for treating roads. So the hierarchy for routes is primary, secondary, and then other. The primary routes are treated first, obviously then the secondary, then the other routes. So the primary routes are what we term the main and the local distributor routes, and those routes that have high frequency bus services. The secondary routes are those roads which connect smaller communities to the primary network, and those that have service bus links. And then other routes are minor rural roads and residential roads. And the routes for the Lochaber area are detailed in Appendix A, and they're colour-coded to show you which are the primary and the secondary and other. The resources that you have available in the Lochaber area are detailed in Section 7 and Section 8 of your report. Section 7 details the staffing establishment, and you'll be very aware that we've got 2 main offices or depots, one based at Carr's Corner, one based at Struntium. Carr's Corner we have 10 operatives and a 4-person, and at Struntium we have 9 operatives and a 4-person. And those 2 teams are supported by a senior engineer, a roads officer and operational support officer. In terms of the vehicles and plants, we've got 8 dedicated gritters and 2 foot tractors that are serving this area. So the treatment times are generally between 6 AM and 9 PM, but when it's public holiday, there is a slightly later start time of 8:30 AM. The council provides grip bins as part of its community self-help winter resilience scheme. And in times of extreme weather, we do meet up with various representatives from the council, the police, and the trunk road to coordinate action as is required. So I think that's probably it in terms of the presentation. So the recommendation for you members is to ask that you approve the winter service plan. I'm not aware that there's been any significant changes from last year, but if you do have any queries, then I'm happy to help, or Gary's here if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tracy, and I think thanks for the questions.
From Kilhone west, the lighthouse, there are people who live on that road, and there are school children there.
Right.
And the community council have told me that that area is no longer getting gritted, so the Struntium team are not going beyond the village.
Okay.
And they would particularly like it if we could start again from the
Okay. Do you want
So-
to look at the map?
yeah.
So we focus. Okay.
Oh, so it's not where it was, but the lighthouse, Kilhone is there,
Yes.
and the lighthouse is somewhere along there.
Yes, I can. It's still looking as if it's a treatment route.
Yeah.
I'll make inquiries. Okay, because it's still down the treatment route, but
Okay.
lighthouse. So we can check that with the team again. Myself will check that with the team and get back to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm Angus.
Oh, sorry, Angus.
That's right. Doesn't mean you can. No.
Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes, and going to the same area, there was
Yes.
concern on what I would describe as the secondary routes on the way to Kilhone. Some people actually, when it was snowing at like 5, 6 o'clock in the winter, and the greeting, they did basically the main road, and then
We couldn't get out to the secondary.
they would come in the following morning. Some people couldn't get home, but that also meant overnight that they have a first aid response system in place. That the first aid person, the first responder, could not go to a place if there was lack of contact. How could we tackle that?
Well, it's very difficult. I mean, in extreme weather conditions, the priority has to be those primary routes.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that we have to keep clear, and then we get out to the other routes as and when those resources permit. And we can never really say that even the primary routes can be free of grit or snow at all time, because when you gritted them, some of it depends on the amount of traffic that you get for that to actually start being effective on the road network, and also there can be snow all day. So sometimes, there have to be up and down the primary routes to keep those free. So what we try to do in those conditions is obviously we meet with what the agencies are impacted, and we try to prioritise the resources as they're needed. And if there was somewhere on the secondary route that was felt to be essential, then resources would be diverted there. But if not, they would still be focused on the primary route. And that happens throughout Highland, I'm afraid. I mean, obviously there's the community self-help or reliance scheme, and there's grit bits around, and some communities can actually, try to help support the service where they need to locally. But the priority would have to be the primary routes, because we've got 8 dedicated gritters, 2 footpaths, and we need to try and keep those free of gritters for as much as we can. So, sorry.
Thanks, Tracy. I'm just looking at the Fort William area map.
Yeah.
So, on an average day, for example, what are the chances that the secondary routes will also be gritted? Because I'm just looking at a couple, for example, the route into Inverlochy and Flagon, for example, which bus and into Aned,
Yeah.
which of course are bus routes too, and the blue route out in secondary route out in Corpac. So they're bus routes.
Yeah.
Of course, Corpac is going up the hill as well. So just what generally, what are the chances those secondary routes will be gritted?
Well, to be honest, most of the time they should be, because that main, obviously the trunk road will be gritted going out to those communities, and then those other routes are just off the trunk road. So I'm not aware that we've had a problem in gritting those areas previously. So I think we've got quite a high degree of confidence that those routes will be gritted. So some of the further flung areas, perhaps Frontier, I can understand that there might be some difficulty in some of those communities, but not in that main section there.
So is there any reason they couldn't be primary routes then, or is it just that's the primary routes are physically what can be done? And
it's like treatment times as well, because with the resource that we've got, we commit to having the treatment delivered, as I say, between I think it's 6 and 9 in the morning, and certainly before the bus services start. We couldn't do that everywhere, so that's the difference really, to get those primary routes, bus routes, out to the secondary routes.
Thank you very much, Tracy.
Okay.
Are we all happy? We're happy to approve the winter service plan for Lochaber? Yes?
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Tracy.
No, it wasn't.
Thanks, Tracy and Gary, for coming. So, Ward 7, item 7, Ward discretionary budget, we're just noting the funds that have been allocated so far for 23-24. And item 8, the minutes of the, approve the minutes of the May, noting the May committee meeting. And that is, thank you all for coming. That is the Lochaber Area Committee meeting completed.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.